In the last segment, we examined the motivations behind European exploration: God, gold, and glory. Now we turn to the means. How were Europeans suddenly able to sail long distances and explore the wider world in the 15th century? By the late 1400s, Europe had reached a crucial point in its economic and technological development. Advances in navigation, shipbuilding, cartography, and geographical knowledge enabled Europeans to venture into the Atlantic, Indian, and eventually Pacific Oceans with far greater confidence and safety than ever before. By the end of the 15th century, Europe was on the brink of a new era of exploration, driven not by luck or guesswork, but by steady advances in knowledge and technology. Over time, European mapmakers had dramatically improved cartography. As explorers ventured farther along coastlines and returned with new information, maps became more accurate and detailed, giving sailors a clearer understanding of the world's geography than ever before. At the same time, shipbuilding had undergone significant innovation. European craftsmen developed stronger hulls and more efficient rigging, creating vessels that were both seaworthy and capable of long-distance travel. These ships could withstand the challenges of the open ocean, making extended voyages across unknown waters possible. Equally important were new navigational tools that gave sailors confidence even when far from land. Instruments such as the magnetic compass helped determine direction, while the astrolabe and cross-staff allowed navigators to estimate their latitude by observing the position of the stars. With these tools, mariners were no longer limited to hugging coastlines. They could venture into the open sea with a reasonable sense of where they were. Perhaps most transformative was the growing scientific understanding of global wind patterns. European sailors learned that the oceans followed predictable systems. In the Atlantic and Pacific, steady trade winds blew from the east near the equator, while westerlies further north and south blew from the west. In the Indian Ocean, seasonal monsoon winds shifted direction at different times of the year, southwest winds dominating from April to October, and northeast winds prevailing in the winter months. This knowledge allowed navigators to chart deliberate routes, taking advantage of these winds to travel efficiently across vast distances. Exploration, once uncertain and hazardous, became increasingly organized and repeatable. Together, these developments transformed European seafaring, enabling the great voyages that would soon connect continents and reshape the world. Portugal soon emerged as Europe's leading force in maritime exploration, largely due to the vision and leadership of Prince Henry, later known as Henry the Navigator. Recognizing the potential of the sea as a pathway to wealth and knowledge, Henry worked to transform exploration from scattered ventures into a coordinated and scientific effort. In 1419, Henry established what became known as the Navigation School, a pioneering center dedicated to advancing seafaring knowledge. This institution brought together skilled ship captains, scholars, and mapmakers in one place, creating a collaborative environment focused on exploration. At the school, captains were trained not only in leadership at sea, but also in the practical skills needed for long voyages. Students and experts studied navigation in depth, learning how to use instruments and apply emerging geographic knowledge. They also carefully examined winds, ocean currents, and coastal features, building a more systematic understanding of how the seas functioned. This combination of training and research turned the school into a hub of innovation. As a result, Henry's Navigation School became the driving scientific force behind Portugal's early successes in exploration. It helped transform ocean travel into a disciplined and repeatable practice, laying the groundwork for Portugal's expansion along the African coast and beyond. As Portuguese explorers pushed farther into the Atlantic, their ships gradually moved down the west coast of Africa, driven by a desire for gold, new trade routes, and valuable goods. What began as cautious coastal exploration soon expanded into more regular and organized voyages, each journey adding to Europe's growing knowledge of Africa's geography and resources. A turning point came in 1441, when Portuguese explorers reached the Senegal River, located just north of Cape Verde. This voyage marked not only a geographic achievement, but also the beginning of a troubling new chapter in European expansion. On this expedition, the Portuguese captured and transported enslaved Africans back to Europe, where they were sold in markets. In the years that followed, this practice expanded rapidly. Within a short time, Portuguese traders were shipping more than 1,000 enslaved Africans each year to Portugal. What had begun as isolated incidents of capture soon developed into a system of human trafficking that would grow in scale and complexity. Alongside their search for gold and trade opportunities, the Portuguese were now also laying the foundations for the transatlantic slave trade, with lasting and devastating consequences. By 1471, Portuguese exploration had reached a major milestone. After decades of slowly advancing down the West African coast, Portuguese sailors arrived at a region rich in gold. So abundant were the resources there that Europeans soon referred to it as the Gold Coast, an area that would become central to Portuguese trade and influence in Africa. At the same time, Portuguese interaction with African societies became more structured and sustained. One important relationship developed with the Kingdom of Congo, located near the mouth of the Zaire-Congo River. Instead of relying solely on exploration, the Portuguese began to establish direct trade connections with powerful African states, exchanging European goods for gold, ivory, and other valuable resources. To support and expand this growing trade network, the Portuguese took further steps to secure a permanent presence along the coast. They negotiated with African rulers to purchase small areas of coastal land where they constructed stone forts. These forts served as protected trading posts, allowing merchants to store goods, conduct exchanges, and maintain a steady commercial presence. Together, these developments marked a shift from exploration to long-term engagement. Portuguese activity in West Africa was no longer limited to brief voyages. It had become a system of trade, diplomacy, and settlement that would shape the region's history for centuries. Portugal's greatest breakthrough in exploration came with its discovery of a direct sea route to India, a development that would transform global trade. After decades of gradual progress along the African coast, Portuguese sailors finally proved that it was possible to reach the riches of Asia by sea rather than overland. The first major step came in 1487, when Bartolomeu Dias achieved a remarkable feat. Dias successfully sailed to the southern tip of Africa and navigated around it, demonstrating that the Atlantic Ocean was connected to the Indian Ocean. He named this landmark the Cape of Good Hope, a name that reflected the optimism it inspired. For the first time, Europeans had clear evidence that a maritime route to Asia was within reach. Building on Dias's achievement, Vasco da Gama completed the journey a decade later. In 1498, da Gama not only rounded the Cape of Good Hope, but also continued further, sailing up the eastern coast of Africa, crossing the vast Indian Ocean, and finally arriving at Calicut on the west coast of India. This voyage marked a historic milestone, the first successful all-water route from Europe to India. Da Gama's return to Portugal demonstrated the enormous potential of this new route. His ships carried back a dazzling array of valuable goods, including spices such as cinnamon, ginger, pepper, cloves, nutmeg, and mace, along with luxury items like musk, porcelains, incense, sandalwood, opium, and precious stones, diamonds, rubies, and pearls. These goods were highly sought after in Europe and could be sold for enormous profits. With this achievement, Portugal secured a direct link to Asian markets, bypassing traditional overland routes controlled by other powers. The voyage not only brought wealth to Portugal, but also marked the beginning of a new era of global trade and European expansion, reshaping economic and cultural connections across continents.